Andariki Namaskaramulo. Today is another good day for all of us that we are going to start with a new topic that is Dharma Sasatras by Nithin Sridharji. I will introduce him to all of you after we have the initial formalities. We are on advanced level 2 of a certificate course on Sanatana Dharma. We already had a basic course. We have conducted 3 courses. All those people who have successfully completed that course after examination and regular attendance, they have been admitted into this course, all selected people. So we have started this on 3rd July of this month, and we have completed some topics like Vedas, Vedangas, Upanishads, Darshanams, and now we are on Dharma Shastras, and we have another new we have a new speaker now. Earlier we have known people who have taught us in basic course. So he will be taking 3 courses now, 3 sessions now on Dharma Shastras, and also he will again come back to us on Mahabharatam, that is next month. So with this, I'll request Challa Chittibabu Garu to recite Vande Mataram, please.
Om Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malayaj Sitalam, Sasya Syamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Supratyosna Pulakitayamini, Pullakusumita Trumadala Shobhini, Suhasini, Sumadhura Bhashini, Sukhadam Varadam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram. Namaskar.
Vande Mataram. So now let us request Anantanji to chant Prarthana, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. 1 minute meditation. Let us close our eyes. Sit erect. Total concentration on breathe. Effortlessly. Three times Omkaram. गणानान्त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् महागणपतये नमः। प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्र्यवतु वाग्देव्यै नमः। गुरुरेव गतिर् गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे। न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।
ధన్యవాదములండి అనంతన్ గారు. Now I'll introduce the speaker to all of you, Nithin Sridhar ji. Nithin Sridhar has a degree in civil engineering. 1 minute. Okay. Nithin Sridhar has a degree in civil engineering. After working in the field of construction for some time, he has been writing and speaking on various subjects such as religion, spirituality, and culture. He has authored 7 books on various aspects of Hindu culture and practice. His first book, Musings on Hinduism, provided an overview of various aspects of Hindu philosophy and society. His book, The Samanya Dharma, enunciates upon general tenets of ethics as available in Hindu texts. His latest book, Upanishads, an English commentary, is an English translation and commentary on one of the prominent Hindu texts. However, his most widely read book is Menstruation Across Cultures, a historical perspective, which examines menstruation notions and practices prevalent in different cultures and religions from across the world. His upcoming book is a commentary on the opening verses of Manusmriti. He is currently the director and the chief curator of Center for Moksha Studies, Advaita Academy, dedicated to the dissemination of Advaita Vedanta. Earlier, he served as editor of India Facts, a portal on Indian history and culture. He is based in Mysuru, Karnataka, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to me to introduce Nithin Sridharji to all of you. And I welcome on behalf of all of you for him to take over the stage and then conduct the webinar, please. Namaste, Sridharji.
Thank you, Babuji. Thank you for the invite. Thank you to Prabhuji as well for inviting me for this program. Let me begin with a small prayer before proceeding further. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada सर्वमंगलमांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः भारती करुणापात्रं भारती पदभूषणं भारती पदमारूढं भारती तीर्थमाश्रये विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विधुशेखरभारतीं श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम् Namaste to everyone and welcome to this 3-session short capsule, I would call it, on Dharma Shastra. You have been studying about different aspects of Hindu Dharma, this being a certificate course on Hindu Dharma. So I just want to start with where Dharma Shastra stands and why to study Dharma Shastra. Because contemporarily, in contemporary discourse, when we speak about Hinduism, Hindu Dharma and Hindu knowledge system, there is a tendency to ignore the Smriti Shastras, tendency to sideline them as something which is not relevant to us today. However, this is an incorrect view in my opinion. And this is borne by the fact that Dharma Shastra is considered one of the 18 Vidyasthanas. So in the Vishnu Purana, for example, it gives the 18 Vidyasthanas, the 18 fields of knowledge or 18 areas of knowledge that one should concern oneself with. So it lists the 18 Vidyas that are listed are the Veda Chatvari, that is the 4 Vedas, the 6 Vedangas, namely Shiksha, Chandas, Kalpa, Jyotisha, Vyakarana, Nirukta, and then the Mimamsa, Nyaya, Dharma Shastra, Purana, Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharveda, and Artha Shastra. So this very clearly shows that Dharma Shastra is an independent field of study. It's an independent area which stands on its own. And in the Manusmriti, we come across a verse which says that when it is said Shruti, it refers to the Veda, and when it is said Smriti, it refers to the Dharma Shastra. So Dharma Shastra properly refers to the Smriti Shastras, the Manu, Yagyavalkya, Parashara, Narada, and all these Smritis which are based on the Veda, which enunciate further and elaborate further on the Vedic teachings. But in a very general sense, Dharma Shastra, as we will see, we will know, is basically any body of work which teaches Dharma. So the term Dharma Shastra itself, if we just briefly deal with it, it has two parts to that word. There is Dharma and there is Shastra. So the Shastra part is, let us just deal with first. So there are different ways the term Shastra has been understood. It can refer to an order, a command, a precept, or a rule. It can refer to a teaching, an instruction, a direction, an advice. good counsel, or it can also refer to any instrument of teaching, any manual or compendium of rules, any book or a treatise, or any religious or a scientific treatise, for example. So Shastra, one of the definitions of Shastra is Shastram viti Shasanopayanam. Shasana Upayam. So Shastra is an instrument to create Shasana, that is, to create order, to create a systematic presentation of knowledge of any area of human concern. So the purpose of the Shastra is to order and systematically present different aspects of a particular field of knowledge. So in this sense, Shastra is basically a scientific treatise or a technical treatise that enumerates the fundamental principles governing a particular field. So, for example, we have biology is called as a Jiva Shastra, a Shastra which teaches about the Jiva, about an organism. We have Bhautika Shastra, similarly for physics. We have Artha Shastra for science of or knowledge of treatise of politics and economics, and so on and so forth. So now we have Dharma Shastra, wherein the purpose of Dharma Shastra is to teach Dharma. So now one of the beauty of Hindu Jnana Parampara is every text, every important text speaks about Anubandha Chatushtaya. You know, in the very beginning, or perhaps somewhere in the middle, or usually at the very beginning, the texts speak about the fourfold connections or fourfold aspects of the text. So the texts are self-conscious in this sense. So when it comes to Dharma Shastras, the question then is, what are these fourfold connections? Anubandha Chatushtayam. So Anubandha Chatushtayam, the fourfold connections are basically the four aspects. The one is Adhikari, the who is qualified to study a particular text or who is qualified to practice what is taught in a particular text. And there is Vishaya, the subject matter, the object of knowledge that is revealed or that is enunciated in the text. And then we have the Phala or Prayojana. So what is the goal? What is the purpose that is served by studying a particular field of knowledge? And then there is Sambandha, basically the relationship between the Adhikari and the Vishaya and the Prayojana. So in the case of Dharma Shastra, as the name itself clarifies, the Vishaya is Dharma. And we will see through today's presentation, I will be just sharing my PPT now. We will be dealing in today's session on the definition of Dharma, what exactly Dharma is, because all of us use the term Dharma in a very colloquial sense, in a everyday sense, without actually fully appreciating, fully grasping. We have some intuitive understanding of Dharma. Definitely we all have that. That is why we use it. But everybody may not fully grasp the complete implications of the definition of Dharma or different aspects of the definition of Dharma. So that is what we will be dealing with today, only the defining the very term Dharma in this session. So that is the Vishaya part. And as we deal with this definition, we will also have clarity regarding the Prayojana, regarding the Sambandha as well. So let me just start share my presentation. Just give me a second. Is this visible?
It is visible.
Okay, I'm just starting a full screen mode. This is also full screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing, as the title here says, understanding Dharma in the context of karma, karma phala. So the first thing to be kept in mind is that when we speak of Dharma, irrespective of the context, there is always an element of karma phala that is indicated by the term, and we should never forget this this context of the term dharma, because dharma is a shastriya terminology. It is a shastriya concept given to us by the shastras. It is not a lokachara. It is not something which is purely a matter of how we communicate things in our everyday life. Dharma is a shastriya concept. Therefore, the shastriya definition of dharma has to be borne by us. We have to have have that in our mind, even when we are using the dharma in a more colloquial sense, more everyday sense. So only then that term dharma would be meaningful. Now we see that, like many Sanskrita words, dharma also cannot be fully translated into any single English term. It could be referred to a variety of meanings. It can take variety of meanings in variety of contexts, like ethics, morality, law, justice, duty, righteousness, ritual performance, and so on and so forth. In the context of an individual, dharma refers to, for example, performing one's own duties, one's religious and ritualistic obligations, as well as ethical actions. In the context of society, dharma could refer to social harmony, morality. In the context of governance, it could refer to law, justice, uh, protection of the subjects. In the cosmic context, dharma refers to Rita, the cosmic order, balance, so on and so forth. So, while this is a very broad landscape in which dharma manifests, because our rishis have beautifully codified lot of information into simple terminologies which could take on different meanings in different contexts. So dharma is one such word. We have similar terms such as yajna, jnana, bhakti. So many words are there which have different connotations, but which have been very, very well defined in a very technical sense in the Shastras. So studying these definitions are very, very useful to have a firm grasp about what the subject is. So one of the very first definition of dharma is that dharma is that which upholds. So this is basically a very grammatical, etymological meaning. The dharma comes from dhru dharayati. Dhru dharayati means that to bear, to support. So dharma can be defined as that which supports, that which sustains, that which upholds, which nurtures, which stabilizes. See, all these English terms, the nurtures, upholding, sustaining, stabilizing, all can be used in some way to explain the notion of dharana. See, so the dharana term itself is very meaningful, and I think we could understand it without this necessary of a translation. Like one of the best example of dharana is what the Mother Earth does. In Hindu conception, the bhumi, the prithvi, it bears us. It bears us, and we have this Puranic story about how the bhumi was burdened by all the weight of all that she has to bear in the sense of human activities and other things. And Bhagwan Vishnu had to take avatara. One of the purposes of avatara is to reduce this weight that the bhumi has to bear, has to bear. So this is the notion of dharana, is what dharma, dharayati iti dharma, right? So this is the very first definition, dharma as that which upholds, that which bears, which sustains. So then the question arises, what is it upholding? What is it bearing? What is it sustaining? So very simple answer we find in Mahabharata, in Karna Parva, wherein Bhagwan Krishna says, Dharana dharmam ityahu dharmo dharayati praja. That which does the dharana, which does the upholding, sustaining is called as dharma, and dharma dharayati praja. Dharma upholds all beings. Praja means all beings, everything, all objects of the world. Because in the Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, it says, Yatova bhutani jayanti. Know that as Brahman, that from which all these objects, all this bhuta, all this both jiva and ajiva, both living and non-living, the jiva and the jada, all beings, everything has manifested, has taken, has come out of that Brahman. They are sustained in that Brahman and they dissolve into that Brahman. Know that as Brahman. So, dharma is this Ishvara itself, who is the Jagat Karana. Who is the Jagat Karana? Jagat Karana for the Jagat Sthiti as well as Laya. So, dharma is in this sense a special manifestation of Ishvara himself, whose purpose is to uphold all beings. Dharmo Vishwasya Jagataha Pratishta. So this is from Narayana, Mahanarayana Upanishad, one of the very important Upanishads. And it says Dharma is the support of the whole cosmos, whole Vishwa. All people draw near a person who is fully devoted to Dharma. Through Dharma, one removes all papam. So the translation I have used is sin, but sin is a Christian concept. We have to bear in mind that the Christian notion is that of original sin, a permanent sin. There are a lot of things, baggage is there. But for us, papa basically means a karmic demerit. You do a papa karma, there is a karmic demerit which results in suffering, dukkha in the future. So dharma is that which removes papa and everything is established in dharma. Dharme sarvam pratishthitam. Hence, dharma is considered the highest. Paramam vadanti, highest. So, dharma is that which upholds, which sustains. And what does dharma sustain? It sustains all beings. It sustains the entire cosmos. So, the next question is, how does dharma sustain all beings? What exactly does it mean to say that dharma sustains all beings? So, for this, we will look at into another definition, a very beautiful definition. This is from Vaisheshika Sutras. Vaisheshika Darshana is one of the Astika Darshanas. So, in the Vaisheshika Sutras, in the very opening, I think this is the second sutra of the first Adhyaya. It says, Yatho Abhyudayani, Yatho Abhyudaya Nishreyasa Siddhi Sa Dharma. Dharma, Sa Dharma, Dharma is that from which Siddhi results the accomplishment of Abhyudaya and Nishreyasa. So the two words are used. So dharma is defined as that from which results or which leads to or which imparts upon us accomplishment, which facilitates us the accomplishment of or attainment of Abhyudaya Nishreyasa. So now Abhyudaya is basically can be understood as happiness, well-being, the material happiness, overall happiness in this material world, in this immediate physical world as well as the next world after the death of the body, wherever the journey goes. Moksha is called as Nishreyasa. Moksha is the supreme good, the highest goal of life, that is called as Nishreyasa. So dharma is the means to attain both Abhyudaya and Nishreyasa. Overall well-being of a person is what is granted by dharma. So dharma sustains a being, sustains an individual by facilitating that individual, by providing a means to that individual through which the individual can attain overall well-being in the form of abhyudaya, the materialistic well-being, or this worldly well-being, as well as paralokika well-being, and nishreyasa, which is ultimate moksha, the freedom from the cycle of birth and death, the attainment of the supreme good, the attainment of the ultimate ananda is moksha. Now, this definition has a little bit more to it that needs to be understood, and for that we will look into another definition. This time this is given in Parashara Smriti. Parashara Smriti defines dharma as hita. Hita means beneficial, that which is beneficial to a person. So now Sri Madhavacharya, that is Vidyaranya Swami, who has written a commentary on this Parashara Smriti called Parashara Madhava, he explains this why dharma is called as hita, that which is beneficial to us. And he says that dharma is called hita because it is a means to attain our desired fruits. So if we have certain fruits which we want, for example, our desires can be broadly classified into, say, desire for wealth, desire for family, relationships, and desire for happiness, desire for even paralokika happiness, the sukha in the afterlife, right? So these are the different kinds of desires we have. So dharma is called as beneficial hita because it is a means to attain these desires. There are many kinds of desires, so dharma is the means to attain all those. Now it is of course possible that you try to attain your fruits, your desires, without using the means of dharma, but then those methods in which dharma is not involved, or which is adharmika, which is unethical in nature, it leads to dukkha. We already saw it generates papa karma and leads to dukkha, whereas dharma leads to sukha. So that is what is being defined here. Madhavacharya Vidyaranya says such desired fruits, the dharma is hita because it is a means to attain desired fruits. So what are these desired fruits? He says such desired fruits are two types: aihika, this worldly, and amushmika, the other worldly. So ihaloka and paraloka, this worldly and other worldly, there are two types of desires. And this worldly desires is of course about arthakama. This worldly desires is also happiness and attainment of pleasure, attainment of security, financial security, and all these things are there. So happiness in this world is basically the desire we want in this world. But there are other worldly desires also, amushmika, and Parashara Madhava says these amushmika desires are also two types, that is abhyudaya and nishreyasa. So Parashara Madhava uses the term, he limits the term abhyudaya nishreyasa to amushmika, other worldly results. So what is this abhyudaya in this context? It is attainment of sukha and or happiness in future, in the next lives, and attainment of swarga. And here swarga is, we can translate as heaven, but for the mimamsakas, for the dharma shastragnas, and basically swarga is a realm, is a realm of sukha, or swarga is a experience of sukha, experience of uninterpreted sukha. However, this experience is temporary, is transient. Once your punya karma stock extinguishes, then you fall from swarga. So that is why it is a temporary goal. It is not a permanent happiness. So Abhyudaya is attainment of Sukha in your future lives, but also attainment of Swarga. So the whole notion is understood, is situated in the Hindu notion of Punarjanma. That is, we take birth again and again and again in this karmic cycle, and in this journey we move through different realms. In the Upanishads and all, there is a very beautiful discussion as to what happens to a jiva after the death of the body. So it travels through multiple routes and it attains either it takes the Devayana or the Pitrayana. It goes to the Pitraloka or the Devaloka based on the type of karma a jiva had done in this life. So whatever the path taken is, ultimately the point is Dharma is a means to attain happiness in the form of kama and artha in this life, but also it is a means to attain Swarga after the death of this body, and again Sukha in next lives also. When you take the Punarjanma again and again, if you live a life of Dharma now, then you will experience the fruit of that in the form of Sukha in your future lives. And then there is Nishreyasa, which is another Amushmika, the otherworldly result, which is nothing but, as I said, liberation, moksha, arising from supreme knowledge, that is Tattva Jnana, Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana, whatever you call it. And then Parashara Madhava makes a very important distinction here. Dharma is a direct means for Abhyudaya, he says, whereas it is an indirect means for producing Tattva Jnana. Or that is, it is an indirect means to cause moksha through Tattva Jnana. So how this is you only Jnana is liberating. Only Atma Jnana or Tattva Jnana can give you moksha, because the bandhana is caused by avidya. Therefore, dharma cannot directly give you moksha. However, the function of the dharma is to give rise to chitta shuddhi, that is purification of the mind, such that one overcomes the internal impurities such as kama, krodha, lobha, moha, attachment, delusion, anger, jealousy, etc. Overcome them and purify the mind such that one becomes eligible to practice Jnana Yoga in the form of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa, which in turn gives rise to Atma Jnana, releasing one from the bondage of samsara. So, dharma in this indirect manner produces moksha, leads to moksha, but it gives rise to abhyudaya in a direct manner. So dharma is the direct means of abhyudaya, and by abhyudaya we mean sukha, swarga. Sukha and swarga is the direct result, phala. So we in the beginning I told you, as we proceed in the discussion of definition, we will understand the phala, prayojana of Dharma Shastra. So the prayojana is this, that understanding what constitutes dharma and practicing that dharma leads to sukha and swarga as a direct result, and through chitta shuddhi, which is also a direct result, chitta shuddhi, through chitta shuddhi, it leads indirectly, it takes one towards moksha as well. So that is why the practice of dharma is very, very vital. So in short, dharma is that which leads to overall well-being, material and spiritual well-being, this worldly and otherworldly happiness. So when we say dharma upholds us, sustains us, is beneficial, it is so because it is the means to these desired goals, desired fruits in the form of sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi, ultimately leading to moksha. Because all of us want sukha. Nobody will say that I want dukkha, I want sorrow, I want pain in life. Everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants sorrow. And dharma is the means to attain that. Now, this what we just discussed is again stressed in another definition given in Manusmriti, which basically defines dharma as a means to attain happiness, heaven, and purification of the mind, but in a slightly cryptic manner. It says that karmanancha vivekartham dharma dharmau vyavechayat dvandvavairayo jayat chaimaha sukhadukkadibhi prajaha. So for the karmanancha vivekartham, for the due discrimination, due distinction between actions, Bhagavan has differentiated between dharma and adharma. So there is action, there is karma, which is a neutral term without any kind of qualitative description. It is a neutral term. To distinguish between two kinds of actions based on the kind of results they generate, Bhagavan has distinguished them into two categories, dharma and adharma, and connected people with what is the basis of this distinction? It is the results they generate. So Bhagavan has created this two category of dharma and adharma, two kinds of actions, dharma and adharma, and is connected the people or the jivas with two pairs of opposite results, namely sukha, dukkha, happiness, sorrow, adibhi. The term uses adi, that is etc. and others. What are these others? Swarga, naraka, hell, heaven, hell, attachment, hatred, and so on and so forth. So the very key here to understand is that today when we speak of dharma, we speak in vague terms, but this definition very clearly shows in an individual context, dharma, the very term dharma is a reference to karma. It's a reference to an action, and that action could be bodily action, the action done physical manner, or mental action such as thoughts, or vachika, action done through speech, through words, but it is a reference to action. The term dharma or adharma is always a reference to action. It is always a qualitative description of an action, and this description, this designation of an action as dharma or adharma itself itself is descriptive manner. It itself is definite. It says something about that action. What does it say? It says that if an action is designated as dharma, then it means, it implies that such an action, when performed, will generate sukha, swarga, and chitta shuddhi. Sukha is happiness, swarga is heaven, chitta shuddhi is purification of the mind, which eventually leads to moksha. The opposite is adharma, which refers to those actions which, when performed, it leads one to dukkha or sorrow, naraka, or for the lack of better word, hell. Again, we have to differentiate between a Christian notion of hell and our notion of naraka. Our notion of naraka is merely a place, a realm to experience the fruits of our karmic demerits. And chitta bhranti. So the adharma leads to dukkha, naraka, and chitta bhranti. Chitta bhranti means more confusion, more delusion of your mind, which will increase bondage, samsara bandhana, right? So dharma and adharma, these are very loaded terms, have these very deep meanings associated with them. Now we will go into another aspect of the definition of dharma. Now we saw dharma as what it is, what it leads to, right? What it essentially is a reference to action, and that it leads to sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi, etc. But we also needs to discuss about how to understand dharma, right? We saw that in Anubandha Chatushtaya there is a Vishaya Prayojana Sambandha, there needs to be enunciation about the sambandha between a text which speaks about dharma and the dharma itself. Why should we refer to a text? And we will deal a bit about this in tomorrow's session as well. But now we will just focus in a very basic sense of what dharma is. So one of the very definition of dharma is that dharma is that which is revealed by the shastras or which is revealed by the Shabda Pramana. So we have this definition in, for example, in the Mimamsa Sutra of Jaimini, in the very opening sutra, after this Athato Dharma Jigyasa, then he says, it defines dharma as Chodana Lakshano Artho Dharma. Here Chodana Vakya means the Veda Vakyas which are injunctive. That is the Vidhi Nisheda Vakyas. That is what injunctive. Those Chodana Vakyas, dharma is that which is indicated by those Chodana Vakyas, indicated by the Veda Vakyas, indicated by these particular kind of Veda Vakyas known as Vidhi, Nisheda, etc. So dharma is basically that which is indicated by the Veda. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna again says, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam te Karya Akarya Vyavasthitau Gnatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karma Kartum Arhasi. So what Bhagavan says is that Shastra is the pramana, is the means to understand karya akarya, that is what actions has to be performed and what actions has to be avoided. So karya is dharma, akarya is adharma, what has to be performed, what should not be performed. So Krishna is saying that Shastra is the means to understand, is the pramana to understand dharma and adharma. Knowing this, Gnatva Shastra Vidhanoktam, knowing this, the injunctions, the stipulations given, declared in the Shastras, revealed in the Shastras, one should perform actions in the world. So this is very, very clearly says that Shastra is the pramana, is the means for, pramana means means of knowledge, method of acquiring knowledge. So Shastra, or it shows that the Shastra is the means for knowledge. So what are the Shastras which act as the means of knowledge? So we already saw that Jaimini says Veda is the ultimate means of acquiring knowledge about Dharma. We are speaking about Dharma here purely. So Veda is the ultimate source, but it is not the only one. I mean, in the sense, Veda is the ultimate because it is the only independent source of knowledge, because Veda is Apaurishaya. But based on the Veda, dependent upon the Veda, we have other sources. For example, Manusmriti says, Shrutistu Vedo Vigyayo Dharmashastram tu Vai Smriti Te Sarveshva Mimamsye Tabhyam Dharmehi Nirbhabhav. So what the verse is saying, the Veda is to be known as the Shruti, the revealed text, that is, that which reveals knowledge about Dharma in an independent manner. It is the revelation of Bhagavan. Dharmashastram tu vai smriti. Dharmashastra is the recollection. It is the recollection of the teachings of the Veda by various rishis, such as Manu. Who is Manu? Manu is Swayambhu Manu. He is the son of Brahma. He is the Swayambhu Manu was the first of the Manus who presides over a Manvantara. The current Manu is Vaivasvata Manu, but the one who associated with Manusmriti is the first Manu, Swayambhu Manu. We have Yajnavalkya, again another great Rishi, Parashara, father of Vyasa. We have Vyasa Smriti, which is Vyasa himself has written. We have Narada Smriti by Narada Muni. So these are Smriti, recollections of the Vedic teachings, which have been put down by rishis for the benefit of humanity. And on the matters of Dharma, these two should not be criticized. These two should not be subjected to unnecessary, should not be set aside by using any kind of tarka vitarkas. They should not be set aside by using any other sources of knowledge, any other texts or any other Hetu Shastras, like the Buddha, Bauddha, Jaina, Charvaka arguments. Why? Because Dharma is shows forth, Dharma is revealed in these texts. Now, Yagyavalkya Smriti elaborates this list to Shruti and Smriti. It further adds Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa. So Purana includes Itihasa Purana and then Nyaya and Mimamsa as well. Because Nyaya Mimamsa helps to understand this text. So the key to note here is Dharma can be known only through Shabda Pramana and not by other sources such as perception, inference, etc. If Dharma could be known by other sources, so if perception, inference, etc. would have revealed Dharma, then for example, Bhagwan Krishna would not have said that no Dharma from Shastra. But it is known even otherwise also, because, can we know what is Dharma? We already discussed Dharma refers to action which leads to Sukha, etc. Can we know this by direct perception, that is Pratyaksha Pramana? We can, by our eyes, we can see what is in front of us, by our ears, we can hear the sounds, but we cannot know what action leads to Swarga, Sukha, etc. What action leads to Dukkha. By we may do some kind of inference, Anumana, in our everyday world, thinking that like, if I study for exam, I will pass the exam. If I don't study for exam, I fail the exam. Fine. That much is possible. But we cannot make use inference to understand. For example, the Veda reveals that Yagyakamo yajeta. Sorry, Swargakamo yajeta. Those who desire Swarga has to perform a yajna. This knowledge that this yajna results in Swarga, you cannot get from your either Pratyaksha or Anumana, right? So, Shabda Pramana is the most important Pramana for understanding about Dharma. There are, of course, other there are of course other pramanas also. For example, in the Manusmriti itself, it gives 4 layers for understanding Dharma, 4 contextualization. At the very top is, of course, Shruti, the Veda. Then comes the Smriti, and then there is Sadachara, that is the good achara, the good conduct of the people who are well versed in the Veda and Smriti, that is the Vaidikas. Or the good conduct could be also about our gurus, our acharyas, our own elders in the family. The kulacharas can be learned from them, our elders. Or good achara could also be learned from the Itihasa Puranas, by how Bhagwan Rama lived, what Bhagwan Krishna did, or how Yudhishthira lived, such and so forth. And then there is Atmatripti, Atmanutushti, that is another source. That is, there are many circumstances when there are 2 options, which both of them could be Dharma. Both of them could be sanctioned by the Shastra. In such a case, there is Vikalpa or option. Then we can take that option one which is most pleasing to us. But Atmatripti is also about, there are there are conditions in life, we all fall in Dharma Sankata, wherein there is the option is not black and white, but there are different shades of gray. then we have to take that option through our, we have to discern through our mind that option which is least adharma and maximum dharma. And such is and that which is convincing to our inner conscience. So that is what this Atmanutushti is all about. So Atmanutushti is also considered as one independent source of dharma in such context. So Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa, Puranas, these are the textual sources of dharma. And there is Sadachara, that is how our acharyas, our rishis, our great civilization heroes, how our great elders from our own families who were dharmika elders. If one of the elder was a murderer, that does not mean that that is dharma and we have to practice, right? A dharmika elders, right? How they lived, that also constitutes dharma. And then Atmanutrishti. But the very source is, as I said, is Shastra, because through Shastra only we know what is dharma. That is why Jaimini defines dharma as that which is revealed by Veda. And it is revealed in the form of injunctions and prohibitions. So we will see this again a little bit in tomorrow's session as well. So the Veda is divided, the Vedic statements, Veda Vakyas, are different natures. There is Vidhi Vakya, which is a statement which induces one to act. It is a stipulation that do this. Nisheda is an opposite of Vidhi. It is a prohibition which proscribes something from be done. It says don't do this because doing it will lead to dukkha, will lead to suffering. There are Arthavadas, commendatory, depreciative texts, Namadaya, names and appellations of certain yagyas, and there are, of course, mantra bhaga in the Veda. Now, so one of this definition of dharma is again this, that dharma is adherence to vidhi and avoidance of nisheda, and adharma is opposite. So I mentioned that what is prescribed through vidhi is dharma, and what is prohibited through nisheda vakyas, be it in the Veda or in the Smritis or Itihasa Puranas, the same format is followed. It is what is prohibited, if you perform it, it becomes adharma, and what is prescribed, if you perform it, that is dharma. Now, it is important to understand that there is little bit more at play here, that what is prescribed could be of three types, Nitya, Naimitika and Kamya. So Nitya and Naimitika are compulsory. Nitya is to be done in whatever frequency it is to be done. It is a compulsory action. Naimitika is occasional performances. These are also in compulsory nature. But there is Kamya, which is not compulsory. It is based upon, if you have some desire, then you take it up. So Putra Kameshti Yagya is a Kamya Yagya. That is that Dasharatha performed with an intention to have, desire to have a son. But Nitya Naimitika are those stipulations. If you don't do it, then that also is faulty. That also gives rise to adharma, papakama. There is a discussion in the Mimamsa and the Vedanta what kind of fault it is. We won't go there. There are different views on that. But basically, here vidhi means if it is of a nitya naimitika format, then it is compulsory. Performance of that is necessary. Not performance gives rise to dosha. And performance of them is dharma. On the other hand, there are nisheda karmas. Their non-performance is dharma, their performance is dharma. So the Swarga Kama Yajeta is a very good example about vidhi. Another example is the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara. So Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara is another example for vidhi. Do this, speak truth, practice dharma. Good example for Nisheda Vakya is Na Kalanjam Bhakshayet. Do not eat Kalanja, that is fermented food, because it leads to health issues. But there are other Nisheda Vakyas like do not steal, for example, do not commit injury, so on and so forth. So dharma is adherence to vidhi, avoidance of nishedha, and adharma is the opposite. So we'll just wrap up the discussion with three more slides. This is about apurva, which is the missing link, and this is a very important concept to appreciate. We all know, we all accept Ishvara as karma phaladata, right? Who is the Ishvara is the giver, grantor of the fruits of action. But still there is one element that has to be considered. We mentioned about Swarga Kama Yajeta. Perform yajna if you want to get Swarga. Yajna is being performed now, but Swarga will come to us after the death of the body. So there is a time gap. So then how is it then we are saying that this yajna is giving rise to that result? Because this action of yajna, it is already over. Once you perform it, that action is done and dusted. But result has not come. How will we say that the Swarga there later that comes is because of this yajna? What is the connecting link? What is it that connects karma and karma phala? Because karma and karma phala, the karma phala never comes immediately. Of course, there are certain actions when you say that, say you touch a fire and you immediately get burned. That is a immediate, instantaneous karma phala. The fruit of action comes to you immediately. But that is not how it happens in most of the cases. Otherwise, you will see many criminals committing all crimes, but they never go to jail. They are never punished, right? So how does dharma or dharmika action gives rise to sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi, or adharma or adharmic action gives rise to dukkha, naraka, chitta bhranti? How does karma gives rise to karma phala? Since there is a time gap. Stated differently, how do we establish a cause and effect relationship between an action prescribed or prohibited by Shastra and the purported result which results from that performance? So the Mimamsakas answer this question by enunciating the concept of apurva. Now, what is this apurva? Kumarila Bhatta, in his Tantra Vartika, which is a commentary on Shabara's commentary on Mimamsa Sutras, he defines apurva as the potential which was absent before the performance of an action and which is produced after the performance of that action. This potential or potentiality, potency is known as apurva. Of course, he says for Kumarila Bhatta, apurva is only in the context of the actions prescribed by the Veda and Shastras. In outside of the Vaidika karmas, the other term used with the same meaning is adrishta, that which is invisible. But the definition is very clear cut, that apurva is a potency. And this potency was absent before the performance of action, that is, say, yajna. Before yajna was performed, this potency was not there. And this potency is produced after the performance of that yajna. And it is this potency which endures time. And when the time to ripen the fruit, or when the fruit has ripened, it manifests the results of the action. So there is a potency which is the connecting link between the action and the karma phala. So without such a potency, performance of non-performance of an action would both be same, because there won't be any result. And this potency or apurva is of two kinds, punya and papa. We all have heard of terms punya, papa. We all use it in our daily life. But the punya papa has a technical definition. Punya refers to that potency which gives rise to beneficial result. That is, punya refers to karmic merit, potency of karmic merit generated by dharma, generated by the actions prescribed by the Vidivakyas of the Shastra when they are performed. So when one performs actions according to the Shastras, that is when one performs dharmika actions, it gives rise to a potency called punya, which is nothing but a karmic merit, a potency of karmic merit or karmic merit in a potential format, which when the time is ripe, it fructifies. It gives results in the form of sukha, swarga, etc. Chitta shuddhi, etc. Similarly, when you perform adharma, when you perform actions which have been prohibited by the Shastras, then it gives rise to potency of karmic demerit, which is called as papa. And this papa will fructify in the future in the form of dukkha, naraka, samsara bandhana, chitta bhranti, etc. So, in Manusmriti, there is a statement that a person has only one friend whom he will carry after death with him. One does not carry any friend, any family, any wealth, nothing will come with us. There is only one thing that comes with us, that is dharma and adharma. It's based in the sense of dharma, but it applies to adharma also, because it is the punya and papa which we carry with us, because they are in the potential format. They attaches to the jiva, they become stored in our karana sharira, and we carry it with us. Now we are already out of time. I think we could take some questions. I just before finishing, I had just put some quotes here from Manusmriti, which shows about karma being of three kinds, which I already mentioned: manasika, vachika, and daihika. And whether you do good or bad, whether you do punya karma or papa karma by the mind body action, the results will also be in that format. So if you do adharma through your body, you will suffer through the body. If you do adharma through your mind, you'll suffer through the mind. If you do adharma through words, you'll suffer through words. So bodily action, verbal action, and mental action. So the auspicious and inauspicious results and experienced in through those instruments that we had used. And okay, so we will not go into this. I'll just conclude here. That dharma is that which upholds and sustains all beings, and it is that which is most beneficial and leads to overall well-being, and it is a means to attain happiness, heaven, and purification of the mind, eventually leading to liberation. It's revealed by Shruti, Smriti, and other Shastras in the form of injunctions and prohibitions, Vidhi, Nisheda, and Arthavadas, which go with them. And it constitutes, Dharma constitutes adherence to Vidhi and avoidance of Nisheda. And Dharma facilitates attainment of Sukha, Swarga, etc. by generation of Apurva or potency called Punya. Opposite of Dharma is Adharma. So, irrespective of the context, we understand Dharma in ethics, morality, law, governance, and all. We should never lose sight of this aspect of Dharma as karma phala relationship. So in today's session, we saw the Vishaya of the Dharma, Vishaya of Dharma Shastra being Dharma, and we will look more into the subject matter of Dharma Shastra in the next session, and the important types of Dharma itself in the third session. The prayojana of practice of Dharma is Sukha, Swarga, and Chitta Shuddhi leading to Moksha. Now, Adhikari, just few more words about that. Adhikara is of different nature. There is Adhikara for the practice of Dharma. There is Adhikara for study of particular texts of Dharma. Now, a text like Manusmriti, and study itself could be of different nature. There is a Shastriya method of study, Adhyayana, under a teacher by practicing Brahmacharya and other tapas. There is reading of the text, or listening to lectures like this, which is a non-Shastriya format of study. Now, for practicing of dharma, everybody has adhikara. But here also the Manusmriti says that to practice dharma, you have to first become detached yourself from pursuit of kama and artha. So this is a criteria, this is a competency criteria. As long as you're running behind artha and kama, running behind pursuing, fulfilling your desires, you will not even think about dharma, because you're so attached to this. So only when you detach to some extent, it is not that you become sannyasi, you just detach yourself to some extent from your worldly pursuit by understanding that dharma is the key to happiness, then the instruction of dharma begins for you. So with this very brief introduction, I'll open up for questions. I see some questions have already come on the chat box. Babuji, should I read them out, or how it is?
If you can read it out, that is straight away. Otherwise, I will read it.
I can read it out the questions. That should not be a problem. That will be easier. So one of the questions that has come is there any Shastri? Can somebody mute themselves? I'm able to hear some.
Who is that?
Sorry.
Is it okay? Babu garu, no?
Yeah. So one of the question is there any scripture or shloka in Shastra which categorically says that one who follows adharma or do adharma will be punished here and where? Definitely. In the Manusmriti, in the Puranas, including Garuda Purana, Bhagavad Purana, various texts, we have very, very clear description about what action leads to what kind of results. Like in, for example, in Manusmriti speaks about if you do adharma by the physical body, then you will take birth as, say, trees and plants which do not have physical motion. So there is a suffering to the body. If you do adharma through speech, that is, if you hurt somebody, if you do speak falsehood by your speech, then you will be taken birth, you will take a birth as animals which can produce noise but which cannot speak. So there is a suffering in the form of restrainment of speech. Similarly, if you do adharma through your mind, then in the next life, even though you may be born as a human, you will be born in such conditions, such family conditions or such life conditions, that you will be full of suffering, mental agony. There are other descriptions about, if you, for example, if you steal, you will be born in such an animal yoni. So when you read this text, if you do not have a background, because of our so-called scientific temper and all, we tend to reject these descriptions of either metaphor or exaggerations or as simply nonsense. But this is a very problematic approach. As I said, the Shastra is a pramana. It is revealing some valid knowledge. So we have to have the patience to understand them. It is not, the correct way to understand is that the karma generates punya or papa, which gives rise to fruit in the future. So if your adharma is of a greater magnitude, the result will also be of a greater magnitude. But we have to not forget that life is not white or black. So the Shastras speak about in generic terms that this action will lead to this result. But in life, I will be performing hundreds of action, not just one action. If I'm stealing, I'm not just stealing. I may be doing some good also. I may be doing some bad also, right? So that is where the Ishvara comes into play. Ishvara is the karma phala data. He will decide what action will give rise to what result in which janma, right? So we have to see a broader picture of this. And there is definite mention of the naraka. There is a definite mention of different kinds of karma phala that one gets by performing different kinds of actions. The second question is, when dharma sankata arises, if we take vikalpa or action based on our own free will it result in dharma brashta or leads to adharma? So you see the hierarchy is very clear. Dharma Sankata or not, the anchor or the first, the most important source for knowing Dharma is the Shastra, the Veda, Smriti, Itihasa Puranas. Everybody will not have access to Veda, everybody will not have capability to understand or spend years of studying Veda, or for that matter, even Smritis. But Itihasa Puranas are a very, very easy source. We have guidance in the form of our acharyas also, that is an easy source. So when we are familiar with Itihasa Puranas and the Shastras and the guidance in general, we can use our intellect to understand what option is more in alignment with Dharma. That is what we can do. If in front of us there is an option, there are only two options, white and black, it is easier to choose white. But if in front of us there is a option, a shade of gray, some are more whiter forms of gray and other are blacker forms of gray, but they are all gray. It is better to choose the lighter shades than darker shades. But there is an element here again. It is element of capability, element of circumstance, element of our own willpower. I can give you an extreme case of abortion, for example. If somebody is a rape victim and she is also a pregnant, becomes pregnant as a result of it, many of us accept abortion as a valid for such a person because she has undergone so much stress. There is no doubt about it. She was subjected to assault and she is a victim. And probably in her mental condition, abortion is a better choice. However, abortion is also adharma. There is no doubt about that. The Shastras are very clear about it. So this adharma definitely generates some papa karma. Even in her condition, though the rape was not her fault, she is the victim, abortion is her decision, a free will, though the circumstances implies that the magnitude of adharma is less, definitely, but there is still adharma. So because we are living in Kali Yuga, there is nothing white and black. So we should try to do as much as dharma possible to the best of our ability. So that is what our acharyas, our rishis have always taught us. Even Krishna, in one of the contexts of karma yoga, he says, doing alpa, little bit of karma, that is karma yoga implies performance of dharma also. You cannot do karma yoga with adharma. So little bit of practice of dharma, it is greatly meritorious because it keeps away great fear. So in this context, while we study the Shastra, Shastras helps us to give knowledge about what is dharma and what is adharma in a clear-cut manner. But we have to process it, digest it, and practice what is possible in our context. Like many things are not possible today. It is not the fault of the Shastras. Shastras have not become outdated today. Shastras are always relevant. They are eternally relevant because they reveal knowledge which are eternally relevant. But the current society, being the Kali Yuga, we have deviated from the ideals of Shastra. So we become incompetent, or our circumstances does not allow us to practice dharma charana in an ideal format, and that is okay. We have to practice what is possible. And another question is, nisheda depends on desha kala patra. Sometimes yes, not always, not necessarily. I mean, in the sense, see, both dharma and adharma, we can speak that it is, I mean, see, dharma is also of two kinds, samanya dharma, vishesha dharma. We will see that samanya dharma is universal, whereas vishesha dharma is specific to a particular person, person with a particular community or a particular desha, patra, particular context, particular gender. So all this comes. Even nisheda also could be contextual, definitely. But Nisheda could be universal also. For example, again, it's a nuance. Dharma is sukshmata. We have to always see what specificities before commenting on anything. In general, for example, the Nisheda that do not injure anybody is a general Nisheda. It is always applicable because ahimsa, for example, is a universal category. But we can create exceptions to this Nisheda, right? For example, animal sacrifice, the Pashuvada in a yagya is allowed. It is dharma. It is not prohibited. So the prohibition of ahimsa, the prohibition of himsa does not cover the Pashuvada in a yagya, for example. Pashuvada in a yagya is an exception to the Nisheda of himsa. So there are many other nuances like this. Okay. The next question is, potency is validated by what? Only Shastra validated, no visible sign during present life. Examples, Sudharma was poor, whereas corrupt person seems to live a sorrow life. See, dharma by definition is invisible. The punya papa, the potency is also called as adrishta because invisible. Only Shastra reveals it, so we have to know it only from Shastra. It is not like your physical experiment, that your chemical experiment that you do in the laboratory that can be perceived by your eyes and ears and nose, right? So as I mentioned, dharma by definition is revealed by the Shastra. It cannot be revealed by pratyaksha, anumana and other pramanas. So why Sudhama was poor, you can see that he was poor. But you can only understand from the Shastra that he may be poor in this life. It could be because of his own actions in the past, in past lives. Right? It was a karma phala of his Purva Janma karma. Similarly, you see a corrupt person who is living a corrupt life, right? He's performing corruption in this life, but he's not experiencing sorrow. He's maybe experiencing sorrow, happiness today, but that happiness today is because of his Purva Janma karma. And the result of Papa karma of corruption, he will face in future. That future may be 20 years down the line or 20 lives down the line. That does not matter. He will have to experience the result. Can we identify Apurva with Prarabdha? Yes, in a sense that Prarabdha is basically all this Apurva that is generated, Papa and Punya, it becomes stored in the Karana Sharira, which is called as, what is the term? I just forgot. In the Karana Sharira, it is stored, and from the Karana Sharira, a particular set of karmas, when they are ready to fructify, they become prarabdha and give rise to a particular janma, particular body, particular life of a person. And that prarabdha determines, guides that entire life, what kind of circumstances that a person is put in, what kind of people he meet, all these are defined by prarabdha. So what we call as prarabdha is a particular set from that karana sharira, right? So this karana sharira is made up of this apurva, punya, papa, karma that we did in the past, right? Please define swarga and moksha. Swarga, in a very simple way, is understood as a realm where we experience the fruits of our punya karma in the form of sukha, in the form of very great experience of sukha. But again, swarga is by definition temporary, it is transient. Moksha, on the other hand, is unlimited sukha, infinite sukha, without even a trace of sorrow. Because moksha is liberation from the bondage of birth and death, and this liberation is caused through knowledge. Knowledge of the reality that there was never bandhana to begin with. Knowledge of the reality that Brahman alone exists. Brahma Atma Aikya Jnana. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mityam Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. This knowledge that Brahma is Satya, Jagat is mithya, that is only an appearance. Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. The Jivatma, the individual, and the Paramatma, the Brahman, they're essentially non-different. This knowledge liberates us from all attachment, therefore liberates us from all dukkha, all bondage. So that is what moksha is. Another question is, what happens to the actions of those who do not know anything about Vedas or Dharma? I think this is a very good question. Our acharyas, one of the acharyas I remember, I think Shringeri acharyas, has answered that just because you say I am not aware about CRPC code, the criminal code of conduct, the criminal law, that does not mean that law does not apply to you. If you steal and if you get caught, and you cannot say that I was not aware that there is a law which says that stealing is a crime, so I should not be punished. Same here. Whether we are aware about dharma or not aware about dharma, karma phala is a nature. It's a law of the nature. It happens. It has to happen. It is karma niyama. So if we are, the purpose of this course or the purpose of our shastras, our rishis, is to give you knowledge, to equip you better, to inform you better, so that you can take informed decisions. In today's parlance, informed decisions. You can be more responsible in your actions by knowing what actions leads to what results. But lack of such knowledge does not mean that karma phala will not happen. Even if you don't know that murder will give rise to papa karma, it will give rise to papa karma nevertheless. Because that is how the world functions, right? Without karma phala, the world will not function. World will be completely chaos. There will not be a world at all, right? Even the secular notions of justice, secular notion of law and order will cease to exist if karma phala does not happen. Just take the simple example. You write an exam, you prepare well for the exam, knowing that if you prepare well, you will be able to write well. If you write well, you will be able to pass the exam in distinction or first class, whatever it is. This is a very commonsensical, in a very everyday sense of understanding karma phala. If karma phala did not exist, then no matter how much you study, you will not pass. And somebody may not study, still he pass. Because there will be chaos everywhere, right? The next question is, how can a common person know what is dharma, what is adharma? It appears even Bhishma Drona could not understand, which resulted in war. See, the war resulted because war had to happen. One of the purposes of Krishna Avatara was war. It was the Bharavatara, as I said, one of the purpose of the Avatara is to reduce the Bhara, reduce the weight upon the Bhumi. So war had to happen. The Yuga had to change from Dwapara to Kali. When I think it was Arjuna, right, who when he did not want to fight the Bhishma, Krishna finally at one time he picked up his own weapon. If you don't fight, I will fight. Because war had to happen. That had to happen. So it is not about understanding dharma or not. Yes, we see that even great people like Bhishma, Drona, having doubts about what constitutes dharma in particular situation, sure, definitely, no doubt about that, because we all are humans after all. We are not Krishna, we are not Bhagavan, who is Sarvagya. So by definition, our knowledge is incomplete. But that does not mean there is knowledge of dharma. Dharma is absolutely impossible. Because same Bhishma also gave Upadesha on Rajadharma. The same Bhishma also gave Upadesha on Varnashrama Dharma in Mahabharata, right? So we have to understand that all these tools that have been given to us, the Veda, the Smritis, the Itihasa Puranas, we have so much big tradition of Dharma Shastra commentaries. Our acharyas have written, the Shankaracharya has written, the Amanujacharya has written, everybody has written. All these are there for us to understand Dharma. Let us understand what is possible in our situation, our context, our competency, our thing, and then practice it, whatever little it is, right? Next question is, even without knowledge of Shastras, maybe applying Viveka Dharma is possible. See, Viveka, to apply Viveka, you have to have some content, right? Otherwise, even a criminal justifies his action. You know, you go to jail, you ask any murderer or stealer, those who have committed corruption or whatever, they will justify their actions. Why? Because by nature, our mind uses logic to justify our actions. They are good or bad, it will justify. That is how we remain sane, by justify even our insane actions. You know, the psychopaths, they justify what they do, right? We have to have content in the form of dharma. I and you cannot decide upon dharma independently, because then everybody can say whatever is convenient to them, whatever is favorable to them as dharma. Like they say, might is right, right? So we have to have the basis, and that basis is Shastra. That basis is what the Ishvara himself has revealed in the form of Shruti Smriti Purana, right? I think we have many questions. Why bad things happen to good people? Because good people committed bad activities in their Purva Janma. Very simple answer, right? That is a very logical answer. But bad, if you commit bad now, you will again suffer in the future, right? Is practical application possible? For example, can concurrent crisis of world Manipur situation? Definitely, it is definitely possible. See, you can see my cover virtual photo, right? Samanya Dharma. It's a very short booklet, 100 pages. You just go and buy it on Amazon. There is a chapter there on the social applications of ethical concepts of Dharma. I have not even gone to the Vishesha Dharma. I have dealt only with the Samanya Dharma, the ethical aspect, and we will discuss this in the day after tomorrow session also. There I have shown how even basic principles of ahimsa, satya, etc., they go a long way. If they become our guiding principles of policy, our action, etc., they go in a long way to tackling many of the contemporary issues. It is given in a very simplified, very introductory manner, not going into any specifics, but that gives some idea. As far as Manipur situation, etc., see, it's very simple. Manipur situation is a fight for identity of Hindu civilization, and Hindu civilization has to fight for it. One of the very important dharma is self-preservation. You know, in Mahabharata there is a story. I don't know which sage is it. What is it? Durvasa? Was it Vishwamitra? Was it somebody else? There was a deep drought everywhere, and there was no food to eat. He was a Brahmana rishi. He was not supposed to eat dogs and such things, but he was dying of starvation. So he goes to a house of a forest dweller who was dealing with dogs, who had lots of dogs, and he tries to steal a dog. See, he is first trying to eat a dog, and then he tries to steal for eating purpose. Two adharmas. So that person, I think it was a house of a Chandala, because they rear the dogs, right? So he stops him and says, "What are you doing? You are committing great adharma. You stealing is adharma. Eating dog for you is adharma. I can eat, but you cannot." Then this rishi says, "What you are saying is correct, but there is a greater dharma than on this. If I survive today, then I can do dharma tomorrow. If I don't survive today, what dharma will be done? So by committing adharma today, I will survive, because surviving is a greater dharma. And if I survive, then I can commit even prayashchitta for adharma committed today. That prayashchitta is also possible when I survive today. So that is in a very sense what is happening for Hindu civilization. We have to survive. We have to do what is necessary for survival, including fighting, including taking what means, whatever means necessary. This is not a platform to go into that, because though ahimsa is parama dharma, himsa is also dharma. As I said, himsa is dharma when it comes to self-preservation, when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to kshatra dharma, when it comes to pashu yajna, all these himsas are dharma. And is himsa dharma if it is to protect dharma? Yes, it is definitely. Because you know what is danda? Danda is given to kshatriya, to a king, right? Danda is the power to punish, the power to cause himsa, right? See, this question, can we think that Hindu victims and Muslim Christian invaders are due to Papa Karma done by Hindu victims, and Muslims and Christians have done Papa Karma and will have to pay for it? See, let us not go into these things, you know, because these are all very hypothetical questions. There is definitely no doubt that community suffers as a result of our own Papa Karma. But what exactly that Papa Karma is, we do not have that knowledge, that capacity to pinpoint. Our Papa Karma could be simply that we ignored, we misdiagnosed the threat, we ignored the threat, or it could be many other things also. So these discussions are not useful. What discussion is useful is to know that today we are in a crisis and we have to do the right thing. We have to do work to protect dharma. And the first step in that is to know dharma. Second step in is to practice dharma to the best of our ability, right? You refer to Pashuvada is valid in Yagya, but anywhere you found it that include Govada, consider sin in every situation. See, there are Yagyas where Govada also used to happen, but that is kind of prohibited in Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, you don't see Govada happening in any Yagya. In Kali Yuga, now we have already even given up Pashu Yagya also. In most of the times we use this Pishta Pashu. That is unfortunate because Pashu Vada in a Yagya is a Shruti mandated karma. But Govada, Ashwavada, all these are prohibited in Kali Yuga by various recommendations, and they are considered as Kalivarcha. And why 84 lakh Jivarashi? I don't know why that number is there. I just take it as a reference to a big number. So I have no comments on that. Irrespective of a person's religious leanings, they will be subject to karma phala. With that as basis, when adhara increases, the dharma increases, I meant the world misery will be on the rise, and in such circumstances the good are subject to live amidst adharmis, in a way subject to a different sort of narka. How does the cleansing happen so that the followers of dharma are lifted out and the world is better? So the situation you are describing is basically apad dharma, and in Kali Yuga by definition is a situation of apad dharma. We have to bear through it, we have to do what we possible from our side. But eventually the cleansing happens when the Kali Yuga comes to an end, and Kali Purusha is cleansed by the Vishnu Bhagavan's avatara. That is very, very long way to go. So for now, what we can do is perform dharma, sustain dharma, practice dharma, protect dharma, practice, protect and preserve dharma. That is what we can do for now. And I think that's all the questions are.
Thank you. Thank you, Nithin, Sridhar garu. You have taken us very deep into the subject, which is most difficult in a very simple, straightforward language, and that too very clear language. We all thank you for a good starting of Dharma Shastra, and also you have patiently gone through all the questions in spite of, we are overshooting the time by 10 minutes. And on behalf of all the students, I thank you profoundly for this session. And now I request Ananthanji to chant Prarthana, please.
Om स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्याय्येन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः। गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः, पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी, देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितः, ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः, अपुत्राः पुत्रिणः सन्तु, पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः, अदनाः सदनाः सन्तु, जीवन्तु शरदां शतम्। असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ सर्वेभ्यः नमस्कारः।
ధన్యవాదములండి నితిన్ గారు.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaste.
Okay, and now we will recite national anthem. I request all of you to please stand up and then recite the national anthem along with some background noise. Sishi Babu garu, do you have background noise, or you can sing, or should I?
No, I have background noise.
Okay, I will do that. Okay. जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गाथा, जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे, जय हिंद. Thank you all for attending. Let us meet tomorrow.